He's a co-founder of Dharma Capital, also a co-founder of Consensus Capital, also sits on the board of directors of Consensus and the board of directors of Protocol Labs. We have Mr. Andrew Keys. Give him a round of applause, please.
Forget yesterday. Forget tomorrow. Be here now. Forget your phone. Forget yesterday. Forget tomorrow. Be here now. So why are we here tonight? We're here to learn about how we should re-architect Earth's operating system. I believe our biggest problem is that most of us have nothing at stake. Too little ownership, self-sufficiency, and personal sovereignty. The internet, as we know it, is awesome, but it is absolutely broken. At the same time, our society is facing an existential challenge. These are the number of applications and connected devices that are growing upon a substrate that's faulty. So how did we get here? Back in the 1950s, there were mainframes. They were the size of me. They outputted paper until this man, Edgar Codd, created the relational database. This was the first time data was able to be stored, queried, searched, retrieved. At the same time, the internet was growing up separately. On the top left, it shows Stanford Research Institute, Brigham Young, UCLA, and UCSB creating the first intranets. In 1970, MIT added a node. The key takeaway is that the internet and the database grew up separately. We would log into internet service providers like AOL and extract that data through that intermediary. And the world grew into many different intermediaries where we would have to play ball on their turf. What these legacy apps created were identities, payment rails, the notion of reputation, legacy agreements, and data monetization strategies. So there are problems with that. We basically had subjective institutional trust rather than objective mathematical trust. We had your data monetized. You are the product. We have an increasing cost of intermediation. Intermediaries interpose themselves in situations and extract as much value as possible. Financial hacking, stolen identity, censorship, botnet, fake news. And then the world started to implode in 2008. January. Chancellor on the brink of second bailout of banks. This is the Genesis block of the Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin solved two fundamental problems. One is the cryptographic principle of the double spend. If I send you value, I cannot carbon copy that value and send it to somebody else. If I send you an email, I can carbon copy that email and send it to somebody else. Second is a little bit more complicated, essentially the Byzantine generals problem. How we as a society can agree on the state, the integrity of a database from a decentralized perspective. Bitcoin is the patriarch. It will serve as a substrate for storage of value. The opening act of blockchain technology has been currency. We are going much farther. We are re-architecting Earth's operating system. The decentralization of the internet will impact every industry. Not payments, not voting, not insurance, all of them. So to keep this simple, the internet that we know now commoditized how human beings communicate with each other. Blockchains simplify and commoditize how we agree with each other. And blockchains are the transactional layer of the next generation of the internet. This is important. What you're going to see here are the native digital foundational constructs of society. Registries, reputation, money, business logic, agreements, and identity. We are seeing that before our eyes transformed from analog to digital. We will have tokenization of all of these assets, and we will have instantaneous transactions, which will spur exponential economic growth. To distill this simply in 3 concepts, the next generation of the internet revolves on self-sovereign digital identity, the digitization or tokenization of assets, and the digitization and automation of our agreements. In the future, rather than logging into Facebook, logging into Amazon, logging into Uber, you will be self-sovereign. The browser will be your identity, will be your wallet, will be your login, your reputation. It will be yours. Canonical persona, then there'll be work persona, gamer persona, buyer persona, renter persona, ride sharer persona. And you, self-sovereignly, will be able to denote what you give and what you receive. Fiat, oil, gold, stocks, bonds, derivatives, insurance policies will all become natively digital tokens. This is land token, XYZ. Every one of us could co-own that parcel of land. And let's say that there's a mortgage that's owed on it that costs $1,000 a day. Let's say we have a renter that pays us $1,000 a month. There's a renter that pays us $2,000 a month. We could set up the digital land token wallet to receive the rent, pay the mortgage autonomously, and then split up the remainder to every single person here, trustlessly. We are automating assets, programming assets. This is not just speculating upon if Bitcoin's going to go up and down. This is digitizing the global economy. Rather than Microsoft Word documents, our agreements are turning into software. This is a basic if-then-else statement selling a website. If buyer with X wallet and seller with Y wallet transacts a balance of money, then ownership of that aforementioned asset, which in this case is a website, goes from counterparty A to counterparty B. We are going to embed those natively digital tokens into these natively digital agreements and create next generation living contracts. This will create things like employment contracts that get paid by the minute, or the second, or every Thursday. So the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation settles $2 quadrillion a year. And obviously, we could automate that middle and back office functionality with something like a smart contract. It's already being done. But what about Uber? Uber is part of the bullshit sharing economy. Uber is a service aggregator and an intermediary. Lyft is a service aggregator and an intermediary. Facebook is a three-sided market. Intermediary, advertiser, and the customer, and you are the product. So we've seen the bullshit sharing economy in Uber, and what we are going to see are n-sided, infinite-sided marketplaces instead. So from the same smart contract, you can have the driver, the passenger, the insurer, the lender, all live in the same agreement. The golden source of truth will be the distributed ledger, just like a Google sheet that we all share. So comparing the legacy internet that we know today with the internet of tomorrow, we have to talk about 5 major mega trends that are occurring without technology. We're seeing the evolution of personal data sovereignty based on distrust in the media, in everything that's getting hacked. We're seeing the gig economy and autonomous organizations. We're seeing the unbundling of financial services in the developed world through financial empowerment, monetization, and the adoption of a virtual economy. So when is this going to actually happen? HTTP, HTML, created in '89, took about 10 years to really ramify. 20 years later, the world is fundamentally different. We're about 5 years into this. Will this be big? I definitely believe. So 2020 and the blockchain years, in my opinion, is like 1995 to the first boom of the internet. First and foremost, we have a stack. It's not just Bitcoin, it's not just Ethereum. There's all sorts of religious wars about what the technology will look like in the end, and there should be, because the best technology should win out. But you'll see a stack that has storage of value, smart contracts that are decentralized, decentralized file sharing, mesh networks to actually create the internet from a peer-to-peer nature rather than some type of client-server environment. Next, there were intranets first. So we've seen the rise of permissioned blockchains, delegated proof-of-stake blockchains, while the permissionless ones are growing up and starting to scale. Third are standards. Java became J2EE, Java 2 Enterprise Edition, became the most used software language when there were clean web APIs and clean database APIs. You needed standards. So if you were an engineer in Mumbai or in Paris or in New York, you would have the same database APIs and web APIs. We're starting to see that emerge in the blockchain space. We have a token standard. We have an identity standard, a reputation standard, exchange standard. So it's all kind of bubbling up. And lastly, consumer-facing applications. In the early 90s, the internet was gaming, gambling, and porn, and we see kind of the speculative nature of early digital assets and the early gaming, gambling, and porn. History doesn't repeat itself, but it somewhat rhymes. This is the only slide I'll talk about speculation. The vertical axis is value capture. The legacy internet, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, et al., captured 99% of the application layer. And caveat, from 96 to 06, 85% of .coms went to zero. But TCP/IP and HTTP made no money. The protocols didn't make much money at all. What I believe is going to happen is you're going to see a thinning of that application layer as we go from peer to peer. And then we're going to have these large protocols, similar to what I said, mesh networks, messaging, computation, file storage, smart contracts, storage of value, and these will be substrates by which all verticals can be created. So when we think about these assets, I definitely am aligned with what the Puerto Rican legislation is going. They are mostly commodities. Bitcoin can serve as a digital gold reference of a TAM of 8 trillion. Ether could serve as a digital oil where you need a micropayment of Ether for every computational step on a smart contract. So I won't bore you with all of these logos, but the bottom line is every government, every Fortune 500 has some type of proof of concept into some type of scaled pilot, and we are just starting to see applications go into production. We are still in the first out of the first inning of the actual use of the technology. So in terms of scalability at these protocol layers, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bitcoin processes about 7 transactions per second. Ethereum processes only 15. Visa processes 45,000. I won't bore you with the details of proof of stake or sharding or layer 2 of the Ethereum protocol, but over the next 2 weeks, Ethereum 2.0, which is basically an entire new blockchain, is coming alive. And I believe within a year, it will have over 100,000 transactions per second between layer 1 and layer 2 optimistic rollups and state channels. So we're also starting to see institutional demand and really setting the basis for adoption within the institutional framework. And we have custody, regulation, exchanges, and benchmarks that are being built that can track this stuff. And the great thing about the blockchain is you can have 24/7, 365 nav versus once a month. And so what's topic du jour these days is that the central banks are using blockchain-based central bank digital currencies. Of course, they are one of the many stakeholders that are testing this technology. But just remember, 26% of all US dollars in the history of the United States were created in 2020. Your $4 gallon of milk will soon cost $8, and then $12, and then $20. There are finite properties of these core substrates they're finite properties. And I think that it's a worthwhile consideration when considering what's going on with fiat. Provably scarce. So why are you here? You're here to witness and take part and help re-architect Earth's operating system. The natively digital foundations of societal elements are evolving from analog to digital. Thanks.
Hold on, Mr. Keys. Don't you go nowhere. I got some questions for you, sir. First of all, thank you for your presentation. You told me you had 55 pages of fire. I thought you was lying. You had a pretty good presentation, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I do want to ask you a couple of things, namely ETH 2.0. Okay? So, questions that I'm receiving online as we speak. So thank you, community. Keep asking me questions. ETH 2.0. Would ETH 1.0 tokens be transferable? Do they still operate? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so basically, it's a little bit complicated, but there will be a transition from Ethereum 1.0 to 2.0. Phase 0 is going to occur approximately December 1st. 524,000 Ether will be deposited within the Beacon Chain deposit contract, which will create a validation process wherein Ethereum will transition from proof of work to proof of stake.
Excellent. And how do you see Ethereum, Ethereum obviously had a great experience with CryptoKitties, and with that, we as an industry learned that there were obviously challenges with the blockchain. So moving forward, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some hiccups along the way because initially when Ethereum was designed, I'm sure they didn't anticipate CryptoKitties to break it.
So Ethereum will be the connective tissue and fascia and substrate to the global economy. It will be the clearing, settlement, mediation layer to the internet. It will create the opportunities for the other layers of the stack to interact with each other. It is the only true substrate that anything of value, as evidenced by that prior slide that Brock put up, is $800 billion going through Ethereum right now as we speak, and it's exponential vertical.
I wonder, are you long on ETH?
I've always been public about it. I'm along on everything, so.
Give it up for Mr. Andrew
US dollars.
Give it up for Mr. Andrew Key.
I'm short US dollars.
Listen, I want to tell you guys, don't you go nowhere, sir. I want to tell you guys, this was not an easy event to pull off, right? We got COVID restrictions. We got social distance restrictions. If you guys are unaware, there has not been any cryptocurrency conferences globally this year except for maybe in January or February, right? So all year long, this has been what we've been able to do. So we've been doing what we can on our part. But I will tell you guys, me and Mr. Keys here, we're going to keep bringing you these Dorado events, and we're going to keep broadcasting. As soon as the COVID restrictions release and open up, we will scale up, and we will be inviting you guys down to Puerto Rico. So I want to invite all of you guys at home, especially my diaspora. I want you guys to learn about Act 20, Act 22, which is now Act 60. You qualify. If you haven't lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years, you qualify for the same tax incentives that we all here taking advantage of. And come see me, Pedro Rivera, at Crypto Mondays, and we'll plug you into the network. That's what we got for you guys today, man. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate you guys. God bless you all. Good night.